David Littleproud, thanks very much for your time. We've heard John Barilaro say not pursuing politics, but are you aware at all? Did he just inquire, perhaps politely put the feelers out as to whether the federal Nationals might be interested?
No, I think John's been pretty clear. He's had a gutful. He's given a lot to public life. He's given a lot to regional Australia. He's been a warrior for regional New South Wales. I don't think there's been anyone bigger or better than John Barilaro. And I think he's just had enough, and it's time for him to do something else. I think we all find that, whether it be in politics or in our professional life, that we realise we get to a juncture where we need to have new challenges. And I think that's where John is. He's ticked off every other box. He's made it clear he's not interested in federal politics. I think he wants to have his life returned to him and his family, and I suspect that he'll be successful in whatever he turns his hand to.
You sounded very sympathetic as to the sort of slings and arrows. I guess you've got plenty in the tank, I'm assuming, a bit more to do?
Yeah, mate, look, I'm still ready and firing to swing a few punches and cop a few uppercuts on the way through. You expect that, but at some juncture, everyone's different. And I've only been here since 2016. I've got a lot more to achieve for the people of Maranoa, which is 43% of Queensland, 3 times the state of Victoria, about getting their fair share. And we're slowly getting that with a coalition government. If the other mob get in, we get zero. And that's the danger. And I think what metropolitan Australians have to understand is, Labor Party people aren't bad people, but it's not in their DNA to look after regional Australia. And if the coalition isn't in government, we get zero. And we just don't get anything sent out our way. There's no investment in infrastructure to keep the lights on, to keep the economy moving. And if it wasn't for agriculture and resources, our economy would be buggered at the moment. While other industries were put under the doona, ag and resources kept going.
I'm not sure about zero, but I do want to ask about net zero, including the Glasgow emissions plan, what we're going to take there, net zero, but also the shorter term one. So no plan from the PM presented to the Nats as yet. This summit's the end of the month. Have you been told when you'll get a plan and then how long the Nats will have to deliberate on it?
No, I haven't, and obviously the Deputy Prime Minister and the Prime Minister are having discussions, but I'm not privy to any information around that and whether the Prime Minister intends to present that to the National Party in the party room. Obviously, we've made it clear we're pragmatic enough to look at the details, but we can't commit to something we haven't seen about how we get there and who pays for it. I mean, you can't blindly sign up to something you haven't seen, you don't know what the cost is, which is what the Labor Party's already done. And their only solution at the moment is to tinker with electric vehicles. That's going to get them nowhere near net zero.
Okay.
To blindly go out and to say you're going to sign up is reckless, Tom. And the Nats have been clear about this. We've been consistent.
We'll see more on the plans from Labor. I just want to zero in on the Nats. So can you just clarify for me, though, what's going to happen between now and Glasgow, which is October 31? Will there definitely be a plan presented in detail to the Nats that the Nats then vote on? Is that the process, or is that not clear?
Well, that's up to the Prime Minister. The National Party room will obviously consider it once it's presented to them. But it's a whole-of-government approach, and the Prime Minister and the Energy Minister, Angus Taylor, are putting that together. You've got to understand it's not just energy, it's also agriculture, it's resources, it's transport. We're looking right across the range, and it has to be a whole-of-government. So that work has to be done. It has to have veracity, and that's why we want to make sure that if we hand it over and present it to the people of Australia, we want to look them square in the eye and know that it has currency, that we'll achieve it like we've achieved the rest of our targets that we've been able to do, whether that be Kyoto or
but what
Paris.
Does that, just for the plan,
there's self-loathing in this.
Just for the plan and in terms of Glasgow, what does that mean, though, that there might be something the Prime Minister takes to Glasgow and then seeks approval from the Nationals afterwards? Or do you feel as though you'll have to give it your approval, your party, in some form before it goes to Glasgow?
Well, those will be discussions between the Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister, but obviously if the government's to make any commitment, it would have to have not only the Liberal Party room but the National Party room to consider it, to work through it and to make sure that we have comfort with it. And I think the fact that we do have comfort around the Prime Minister making very clear statements nearly 12 months ago that regional and rural Australia will not pay the bill again gives the National Party great comfort. So his timing is obviously at his discretion, and I know that he'll be working through that to make sure that whatever we announce, whenever it is done, there is due process, and it gives confidence not just to our party rooms but to the Australian people. We're not going to announce something just for the sake of it. We're going to look them in the eye and say how we're going to get there and who pays for it.
So does that mean there could be, for want of a better word, a handshake agreement between the Deputy Prime Minister and the Prime Minister? Glasgow happens and the details a confirmed, sorted out compensation, whatever it might be, for regional areas post Glasgow?
No, I think the Prime Minister's made it clear he'll have an honest conversation with his party room, our party room, the Australian people. That's leadership, and that's what he said from the outset, and he said that regional Australia will be protected. So obviously, once this body of work is complete and the conversation happens, we'll have it in a mature setting whereby we can calmly work through the details, work together to make sure that it does have currency, not just for the Australian people, but for the global community, because of about the 130 that signed up so far, Tom, only about 14 can tell you how they're going to get there. So at the moment, there's a lot of platitudes flying around the world, but Australia has a proud record of living up to its international commitments.
So both for net zero and whatever else happens in 2030 or 2035, an updated target if you like. Just to clarify on this, will all the details be revealed to the Nats and that will be voted on and approved by the Nationals beforehand? Or is that a bit unclear still as to how much detail you'll be given before Glasgow versus afterwards?
Well, we're part of the government, and the government will have a conversation not only between the Liberals and the Nationals, but also jointly. That's the way in which we've operated and continue to do that as a coalition successfully for some time. And that's the mature environment the Prime Minister will set for us. We'll simply work through those issues and understand that technology roadmap, not about taxes, technology. That means that we can embrace the new technology, not just around the world, but here in Australia, that the best and brightest in the world right here in Australia can help create. We create new industries. And he's already made significant announcements around that in partnerships, international partnerships, and also carbon capture storage, which even in my electorate is quite important. I've got 4 coal-fired power stations, one of which is already adopting carbon capture storage.
Can I ask about that then? Because Lou O'Brien says net zero must not negatively affect resources industry jobs, both direct and indirect. It's very broad. Is it an impossibly high bar because we do mine a lot of coal, things are going to change, and it's not about, nobody can lose a job, but it's about a good and just transition, including for the regions, that will no doubt mean significant change. You just have to make sure the change works for the regions.
Well, things aren't going to change overnight, and that's what we've got to appreciate. We'll still be exporting coal because the world will still want it. There will still be countries around the world that want our coal. It's cleaner than any other coal in the world, and they'll be better taking ours. But as they transition, then obviously those exports will take time. But those that are working in the coal industry should take
just to clarify, you're talking
that their jobs are
the coal exports will dwindle over time. It's just about how quickly and how you do it.
Well, I'll finish, Tom, because I think it's important to understand there are new technologies coming on that not only here in Australia, but internationally that'll be taken on. And obviously carbon capture storage is one that Australia has signed up to, as well as the United States. And that means that our own domestic supplies for coal-fired power stations will also go to reducing emissions. And that's an exciting part, as well as can be used for gas as well. So we shouldn't turn our back on technology. We should be agnostic about the technologies we can adopt, and the world may adopt them as well, because if there's significant investments being made still around the world in coal-fired power stations, there's nothing to say that they won't adopt carbon capture storage. So, let's not shut ourselves off if we get back to first principles. First principles is we want to reduce emissions. And if carbon capture storage can do that, or another technology, then Australia should be leading that. But regional Australia has an opportunity to participate in that, and that's what the National Party's saying.
I guess it's about being nimble, and it might well have a big future, it might not. We'll see. On a large scale, it's not all that proven, but we'll have to leave it there and perhaps pick it up another time. David Littleproud, appreciate your time today.
Thanks for having me, mate.